All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. I first want to thank you for joining us today. My name is Jenna Schwannard, marketing consultant from PCA Technology Group, and I'll be your host for this event. Our topic today is white glove security to end your cyber risk. And we are lucky to have IT experts on the call today that are eager to get started. We have Jason Cavelli, account executive from PCA. From Arctic Wolf, we have Lindsay Mosier and Andrew Rocheffer, who are account representatives, as well as Siraj KC, pre-sales engineer, and Sean Brewers in partner development. So please note this webinar will be recorded, and we will be emailing you with the recording and resources after the event, along with a $50 gift card for every qualified attendee. We also have created chances for you to win gift cards throughout the live event as a thank you for your participation. So during this next hour, each time you participate, you are entered into the raffle. And after the event, we will announce winners for 2 Amazon gift cards for $50 each and 1 Amazon gift card for $100. So keep a lookout at our chat. We actually just threw a fun question in there to get us started. If you could have one superpower, what would it be? Please let us know as we kick things off here. And lastly, the order of events here, introducing PCA and Arctic Wolf, diving into security operations, the cyber insurance landscape, cybersecurity jeopardy, how PCA and Arctic Wolf work together, and then we'll conclude with some Q&A and next steps. So with that being said, it's a pleasure to introduce you to Jason Cavelli from PCA.
Thank you, Jenna, and thank you everybody for joining the webinar today, taking time out of your day to learn a little bit more about Arctic Wolf. To give you a little bit more background on PCA, we're a managed services provider here in the Western New York area for over 30 plus years. We support over 200 clients here in Western New York and across the Northeast. In addition to managed services, we house a team of software developers for any custom software applications or any custom web development as well. PCA has always really been focused on providing as much value as we can to our clients and right-sizing their IT operations, as we really don't believe in a one-size-fits-all model. We take the time to listen to our clients, understand what is most important to them, and through that listening experience, we are able to build intimate and long-term relationships with our clients as well as our partners, and that's really important to us. The customer experience is really big, and that is our main focus on our day-to-day. So with that strong focus on cybersecurity, it enters in one of our strongest cybersecurity partners in Arctic Wolf, where PCA is your first line of defense handling, your day-to-day IT needs. Arctic Wolf are the special forces who are able to thwart those attacks when, everybody's sleeping at night. The bad guys aren't going to be working during the day to compromise any of your credentials and things like that. They're going to be working overnight to see what information they can gather, lock it down, and monetize that information. So, there's many ways that Arctic Wolf is able to provide PCA, as we are a client of them. And, to give you a little bit more information, we're just going to pass this over to Andrew and Siraj to take that deeper dive into Arctic Wolf and how they can provide value to your organization as well.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Appreciate the background on PCA, and we've really appreciated the relationship that PCA has built with us. I'll just start really on the top right of this picture, and this is really the best summary of what PCA is really providing. Where Arctic Wolf comes in, and then really the end outcomes for customers. And as a business leader, I know we have a broad range of people on this call, whether you're in IT or you're in the C-suite or you're financially focused, et cetera. Really, the end outcome is to have that business resiliency, to have business solvency, to know that you're safe from having an incident that you would be down for a couple of weeks or a month, have those large payouts. So that's really the end game in cybersecurity, to keep companies safe and to keep operations running. And then it's around satisfying a lot of the newer insurance requirements. We'll talk about that more in a second. But obviously, the cyber insurance industry, they're changing their models and what's being required with controls and whatnot. And then around compliance, if you're a bank or you're a credit union and you have financial compliance around FFIC or NCUA, if you're a manufacturing company, you have CMMC compliance. If you're a law firm, you might have client questionnaires asking you, what are you doing for security to protect our data? Or if you're a healthcare organization, HIPAA or HITRUST would be relevant for you. And really, a lot of retail organizations, they're just worried about, they might not have specific compliance. They may have PCI compliance, but they're just worried about protecting their operations. So 10 years ago, a lot of companies, they'd start with a strategy of, hey, let's get insurance to protect from unknown risks that may come up. And that was a good strategy. And they may have put patching and backup tools in place, likely a firewall and some network tools. And then, then antivirus and EDR came onto the scene. So a lot of companies were protected. But then around 2018, our actually founder at Arctic Wolf talked about the time where cybersecurity really changed in the industry. And that was when ransomware came into the mix, where you had these tools in place, but a cyber criminal could infiltrate them, oftentimes lay dormant, up to, I think the industry average is about 200 days of being dormant within someone's environment before catching it. And then they can, shut down your environment and cause havoc. And the ransomware on the on-premise environments and then the cloud environment is what also really changed this market, where if you're operating in Office 365 or Google, you're exchanging very, very sensitive information, or you're hosting some of those services where you have your information up in the cloud. That really opened up another attack surface that needed to be covered. And so where PCA and the Arctic Wolf relationship really started is PCA does a great job of driving the car where you need it. If you need them to be your IT department, if you need them to host infrastructure or sell infrastructure into your environment, PCA can do that. But where the insurance industry is taking companies is really where Arctic Wolf comes in and can partner with PCA and be a bigger engine behind the scenes, doing that work, doing what's needed with insurance, and providing that 24/7 expertise. So I'll kind of go to the insurance part of this now, but that's really where the conversation started with Arctic Wolf and PCA and what we can provide on the back end for PCA's customers. And so this slide, there's different statistics on the left and right, but really the core part of this slide is the 12 controls that insurance companies are looking for. And if you've been involved in renewing your insurance, or you've gone to get cyber insurance within the last year, you've likely been met with a longer renewal packet that they hand out. What we've heard from customers is that it used to be around 2 pages. It might have taken you 30 minutes to fill out. Now it's around 10 to 20 pages. And oftentimes a cybersecurity expert might call you to figure out exactly what you're doing. And this is because the insurance industry was relatively a flat industry over time. Companies would procure insurance. The insurance companies wouldn't have to pay out any claims. Well, in the last 4 or 5 years with ransomware and business email compromise, that has changed extensively. So the insurance companies are looking at really these 12 controls. And this is obviously an Arctic Wolf focused slide, but if I would combine it with PCA, we would be able to help companies with all of these controls. So you can kind of see where Arctic Wolf solves for certain proactive and reactive controls. And then where we, like MFA, if you have a multi-factor tool in place, we are monitoring what's going on in that environment. And obviously PCA can sell that to you if you need it or you don't have it. But these are really the key controls that the insurance companies are looking for. And oftentimes when you go for renewal, they'll either adjust your premium if you don't have something, or you just won't be able to get insurance. So those are some of the trends that we're seeing in the insurance industry when you go to get insurance and renew. So what I want to do right now is because I know there's different perspectives on the call, whether there be a financially focused individual or an IT director. I want to kick it over to Sean Brewers, who's our partner development rep, and he's going to describe really the different engagement models that Arctic Wolf can work with PCA and then add value to your environment.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. And really here, it's just to help you guys understand that this is a pretty customized approach so it's all going to depend on your need. And of course, we can always, take it offline to understand more from perspective. But, where Arctic Wolf plays is completely different to where PCA plays, right? And we really need to bring those stories together to have this solution delivered in the right way. As you saw in some of those previous slides, it's really Arctic Wolf. We're never going to play in that managed service space. So we're always that extra layer on top to be able to deliver that true 24/7 detection and things like that. But where PCA comes in to the partnership and why we need a strategic partnership with them is from that perspective, depending on how much IT augmentation you guys would need support with, it could be you need a fully managed solution where Arctic Wolf and PCA will drive tickets into the ground and take care of those for you, or maybe it's more PCA augmenting your IT to a certain degree. We can really get flexible with the different engagements that we have, depending on a need that you guys have. But it's why we really need a partner in PCA, is because we're never going to play in that managed service, really taking it all the way through. We're meant to be that eyes on glass that are providing a very competitive SLA, one of the best in the industry, to be able to catch things in real near time. And then PCA can be the feet on the ground to help support that. So that just really kind of lends background to some of those engagements. So as we get a little deeper on the solutions, really just keep in mind that it is pretty customized to what level of augmentation you guys need from an IT perspective. And you can have direct relationship with Arctic Wolf, or you can pass it to PCA and say, hey, these guys really are going to be the full bore of our IT. So Arctic Wolf and PCA, you two just work together on handling this for us. So there's different levels depending on what outcome you guys are looking for. Andrew?
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Yeah, that's good background on, we can deliver value if PCA is your IT department, or if they're providing some services and some infrastructure and whatnot, or if you use them for advisory roles. So depending on your engagement and what you want out of the relationship, Arctic Wolf can scale to meet that. So whether you're a company that has 20 employees and no IT department, or you're a company that has 300 employees and you have some in the IT department, we can really scale to meet those needs with our different models. Well, all right, we're getting to the fun part here. I used to be a science teacher, and I know that webinars can be a long ride. So we're going to get a little interaction going. I prepared 3 questions within the Jeopardy lens. So I know it's not traditional Jeopardy. We'll have teams and we can score it, but let's have a little fun here. So I'll go to the question. Put your answers in the chat, and again, as Jenna mentioned at the top of the call, we will add your name into the raffle for any participation. Whether you're right or wrong, we're just trying to see where people's minds are and how well we know cybersecurity here. So the easiest question, we'll start with the 200. What attack vector is an organization's weakest link and cyber criminals target the most? I'll give you 15 seconds here to go into the chat and give your answer. All right, if you said end users, you are right. So 90% of cyber attacks start with targeting end users through phishing or social engineering methods. And this is true if you're a company. Some of the recent news articles out there, companies that have millions of dollars of cybersecurity IT spend, they've had big time incidents, very public incidents, because one end user either did something wrong with MFA or they gave up their credentials. So all it takes is for one end user to mess something up, and your organization is very much at stake of having a big time attack. So that's question number 1. We're going back. The 400 question, what does XDR stand for? The acronym XDR. Again, I'll give you 15 seconds to put your answers in the chat. If you answered extended detection response, you would have gotten that one right. So really what we're seeing this, and this is really kind of a made up marketing term in the cybersecurity industry, and there's so many acronyms, but really where it comes from is a lot of endpoint detection companies that are just focused on your computers and your servers. They created this term to say that they're doing a little bit more in terms of monitoring. The question I always like to ask anyone that I meet for the first time, one of our customers or prospects, is what are you monitoring? Are you monitoring your endpoints, your servers, your cloud environment, your Active Directory, MFA? Because that's really what matters, right? So these acronyms are oftentimes thrown out there as the next new technology to kind of hook and get people to buy it because they need that new acronym. But really extended detection response is just extending what you can monitor. At Arctic Wolf, we like to call this broad visibility, and I'll let Suraj touch on that at a later point. But that's really where this is coming from, and we're just kind of demystifying a couple acronyms. We'll use another one called managed detection response later. which is our kind of core service that covers the broad visibility component. And then the last question, $600. In millions, what is the average cost of an incident for SMB organizations? So 1 to 500 users. And then a bonus question, what is the average downtime after an incident? So put both answers together in your chat. We'll go 20 seconds here just to give you a little bit more time to think about it. So just over 3 million for an incident per the IBM report in 2022. And then the average downtime is roughly 3 weeks, that 21 days. And that can fluctuate depending on the type of incident, but that's the average. So if you got those two right, you've likely been reading IBM reports, which I give you a lot of credit for. Jenna, did anyone get all of those right here? Well, how does the chat look?
Yeah, the chat's looking great. We're actually going through it right now. We're getting a lot of responses, so a lot of good answers, and people are pretty spot on.
Love it. So continuing on, there's really two teams on the Arctic Wolf side that will either interact with the PCA team, and or if you have an IT department or you're the IT director, sysadmin, network, really all the IT titles out there, that these two teams may interact with you to deliver our services. So we have a triage team that's doing the 24/7 work. And as I mentioned, this is one of the biggest reasons why Arctic Wolf and PCA are seeing mutualistic value to develop this partnership, because it's really hard to hire these individuals that have the cybersecurity expertise, to retain them, to train them. Just hiring one of these folks in the Northeast is on average $120,000. And that's not including benefits and whatnot. So, for PCA to really develop this in-house, that's really not feasible. So we have 500 folks throughout North America doing this work. We have a security operations center in Waterloo, Canada, in Eden Prairie, Minnesota, in Provo, Utah, and in San Antonio, Texas. So what they're doing is I can liken them to, if you have a Simply Safe or an ADT home security system, they're there watching your environment, correlating what's going on in your cloud environments, your endpoint environments, your network activity, and the Active Directory, MFA, et cetera, and figuring out, is this real or is it a false positive? Because oftentimes with 24/7 monitoring services in the cybersecurity realm, oftentimes there's a lot of false positives and you end up paying for just a bunch of noise. And that's the last thing that Arctic Wolf wants to deliver as a service. So this team is getting rid of that noise, only sending, if PCA is your IT department, we'll interact with PCA. So we're only going to send them on average 1 to 2 tickets per week. And then every ticket has context, why we're sending it out, and then best steps to remediate. If you're the IT department, then Arctic Wolf will work with you on that. You'll have a dashboard to be able to see that, reporting, et cetera. One thing I will point out is this triage team has a 5-minute inbound SLA. So if you have an IT department, and you have a question on anything that we send your way, you can call someone at this triage team and get someone on the line in 5 minutes. And then we also have a 30-minute SLA to either PCA, if PCA is your IT department, or if you have an IT department, we have a 30-minute SLA. So obviously that's important, because if there is an incident and it prolongs into days and weeks and months, as is the norm, that's when the incidents become catastrophic to businesses. So our goal is to detect and respond as fast as we can so that we can minimize the impacts. And then the second team that delivers our service is the concierge security team. So this is really what differentiates Arctic Wolf in the cybersecurity marketplace amongst really any other vendor. So this is a team of named cybersecurity experts that, again, if PCA is your IT department, this team engages with PCA and is looking at PCA's customer base around, hey, how can we improve certain aspects? What are configurations that we can look at, to roll out that might increase security? And they're really the true experts. If there's compliance, I mentioned banks, credit unions, legal, manufacturing, healthcare with HIPAA and high trust. This team can prepare reports, whether PCA is your IT department or you have your own IT department. This team can help you with those reports and build out that compliance. And really, they're there to answer short-term questions and then develop a long-term strategic plan so that it's almost like you're getting a consultative approach from Arctic Wolf as we deliver our service. And I'm going to turn it over to Suraj here. I'm very fortunate to have Suraj on the line with me. He has his master's in cybersecurity, does a great job in supporting our efforts in the Northeast. And he's going to talk about really one of our core tenets, and that's having broad visibility into your environment. I mentioned that term XDR, which is usually an endpoint focused and then extended into different areas. But really at Arctic Wolf, our core is to have broad visibility within your environment. And Suraj will do a great job of covering that.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. So one of the things I want to highlight here is, the attacks today, especially the advanced attacks that are coming in, they can come in from any different attack surface, as you can see illustrated in this diagram, right? So in the past, we used to have an endpoint solution that will protect your endpoints, and you have your perimeter defense with a firewall. But then as you move into cloud and you have different attack surfaces, the attacks are really coming from different areas. So what we do here at Arctic Wolf is not only monitor your endpoint, but only your firewall or your cloud. We want to get broad visibility across your entire attack surface. So we'll pull in logs from your endpoint. We have our sensor that gets deployed between your firewall core switch. We can monitor your network activities, DNS, DHCP requests. We can also pull in logs from multiple different firewalls, your IaaS or SaaS application that you're hosting, whether in AWS, Azure, GCP, or SaaS application like Office 365, Microsoft 365, Google Workspace, Salesforce, Box, and then identity sources like Active Directory on-premise or Azure AD or MFA sources or other identity sources like Duo, Okta. So the idea here is to gain broad visibility across your entire attack surface, bring it into a single platform, which is our AWS cloud native platform that we've built, which correlates all the attacks from all these different attack surfaces, and then see if there is anything going on as far as indicator of attack or compromise, and then get back to you with actionable tickets for remediation guidance, right? So that's the core focus here, to get broad visibility and then respond to an incident as soon as we can, which Andrew talked about our SLA, which is 5 minutes of anything that we detect, investigating it, and within 30 minutes coming up with a clean remediation step to guide you through the remediation steps.
Yeah, and one of the key things here is let's say you're going through an audit, whether it's for compliance reasons or your cyber insurer is doing their due diligence on making sure you're doing different components. And let's say a lot of times our customers will ask for reports to bring to their auditors or their assessors to show exactly what they're doing on an artifact basis. So essentially what we can do is we can check the box for a SIM. We have our own SIM platform. So if that's a need within your business environment and you're looking to outsource that SIM and you don't want to hire people and you don't want to buy all the tools that it would take, this essentially is kind of a look into what our SIM is viewing from a telemetry basis and what we're ticketing out. And so one story I have is one of our concierge team members, those named individuals that are providing the long-term and short-term guidance. He said he had a customer and they had an audit on Wednesday, and he was talking to the customer on Friday, and the customer's auditor was asking for a specific report around compliance. So this concierge team member worked within our SIM platform to build out that report that showed, hey, here are the artifacts to satisfy the controls for, I'm not going to say a specific compliance requirement if it's, credit unions, banks, et cetera. But they built out that report and then sat in on that audit to help answer any questions. And so essentially what Arctic Wolf is able to provide with PCA's partnership is we can provide those ready-made reports so that when you sit down with the cyber insurance adjusters, your compliance assessors, we have those and we have your back around, here's exactly how you're executing those services and artifacts. So that's really our broad visibility story. It's crucial to protecting one's environment. You know, a lot of companies that we meet, they might just have an endpoint tool and some network and firewall tools in place, but they've since upgraded to Office 365. They're not monitoring their Active Directory. They may have MFA in place. So really the value that Arctic Wolf can provide in these scenarios, and we'll run through a couple timelines and examples, is Microsoft 365 doesn't come with inherent security, right? So if you're not monitoring what's going on in that Office 365 environment, and even though you might have MFA in place, the cyber criminals can get past MFA. So Arctic Wolf's bringing all of these tools under one pane of glass, and then I'll have Suraj really talk about how we deliver that through our managed detection response service.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. So, the goal here is to detect advanced threat that can bypass these security tools that we have in place, right? And how do we do that? So we talked about having broad visibility across your different attack surface, not only doing it on an 8-to-5 basis, but doing it on a 24/7 basis to see if there is anything going on from a threat perspective. Now, Andrew did a great job talking about our triage team, who is going to be the SOC engineers and analysts monitoring this environment on a 24/7 basis and coming up with a clean remediation step if there is something that is going on in your environment, and followed by the concierge security team, who not only can generate reports, but also be on the more strategic side to provide how can we build business resiliency over time, whether it's looking at your security posture over time, maybe looking at things such as your firewall configuration, looking at Office 365 configuration, maybe doing a security posture in-depth review on a ransomware readiness assessment, right? So things like that, more on a strategic nature. And then we can also do certain things for you. So the triage team can also do some kind of isolation on your endpoint or on the network level. So say there is an active ransomware case at 1 a.m. in the morning, you're not there to respond. With the prior engagement that we've set up for escalation, the triage team can take certain actions on your behalf. Now, the thing that makes us very unique is the focus on your security journey, because as you know, threats are evolving every single day, right? The tools are getting better, but the advanced threats attackers, they're also getting better along with the tool. So focusing on your business, focusing on how we can provide value and improve these over the duration of your business is that security journey, and focusing on different security posture in-depth review that we have. And one of the things from a stats perspective, if you look at the 43% that you see as a number, that's a number we've seen. Those number of customers that we've onboarded, they have some kind of latent threat in their environment. And as we enroll the service, we've started to uncover those, whether there's this web shell sitting on somebody's system, or there's some kind of a backdoor that they're not aware of. That's about 43%. Now, if you are wondering about what those detect, respond, and recover mean, are those, so identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover are the 5 pillars of the NIST cybersecurity framework. And here with this service, what we're trying to do is detect any threat in our customer's environment as soon as possible, respond to it in a timely fashion, and then using the security framework, recover as soon as possible and get you back into the business as soon as possible. So.
Yeah, and really this service, if you think of an incident happening, and there's often an analogy called, before the boom and after the boom, this service is really picking up, while the incident, the boom is happening, and then trying to shorten that response time as much as possible. The second service that we're partnering with PCA on delivering is really trying to prevent the big incident, the booms from happening. And so it's called managed security awareness, and it's educating your end users to become more cyber aware. So I'll let Suraj talk about this and why it's really important.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andrew. So when you think about, cybersecurity, right, whether it's proactive or reactive, so when you think about security awareness training, it's more on the proactive side, where what we're trying to do is knowing that 90% of the attacks today are targeting humans, because it's more easier to social engineer the way into your the environment rather than trying to break in by using different tools. So what we're trying to do here is send 3 to 5 minutes micro learning videos, so that instead of doing once a year training, people are engaging more, they're learning more quickly, and then also doing quizzes on a biweekly fashion to see if they're retaining what they're learning from those sessions, right? Part of this program is also one phishing simulation that is automatically sent to their inbox once a month to see how well are they doing and are they going to fall for these schemes. Now, if they do click on those phishing simulation, they get sent to a guided remediation right away. So instead of waiting another 2 to 3 weeks or even a month, they will get sent to the guided remediation, which will say, don't panic, this was a phishing test that we sent out, you failed. Here are the 5 things you should be looking out for in these type of emails so you don't fall for these types of schemes in the future. Now, when you think about the management aspect of this program, it's again fully managed and delivered through your concierge security team. So as you build your security culture in your company, you can work with the concierge security team to curate that, build that posture, and then work through improving through those engagement as well. So when you think about the NIST cybersecurity pillars, again, this is more on identifying who's at risk from your people's perspective, protecting them, and then making sure they are aware about those new attacks that are coming up today.
Yeah, and one of my favorite things about this training is we take it internally, is you can schedule it. We send it out bi-monthly. So typical security awareness training oftentimes is either required for compliance, and cyber insurance is obviously adding it to their list of controls. But it's often delivered yearly or bi-yearly. And we all know that if you don't do something every month, you lose about 90% of that information. And so our goal is to really make this, embedded within your employee culture, so that Sally in accounts payable, when she comes in on Monday morning, or Mike, as the VP of finance, when they come in on Monday morning, they're thinking about the emails that are hitting their email boxes, and they're looking for signs of phishing attempts, of cyber criminals that are trying to social engineer them to give up their credentials. And what we're doing with these videos are 3 to 4 minute videos. They go right to your employees' email boxes, because I know that I forget my passwords. I don't know exactly what to log in on all these different accounts. So we don't have it password and username guarded, because that would decrease the efficiency. So your users can click right into them, watch a 3 to 4 minute video. There's quizzes, there's automated phishing simulations, and then there's dashboarding out, so you can see who's taking the training, who's not taking the training. You can even gamify it by screenshotting the top 10 and rewarding them for really establishing the security culture. So that's a little bit of who's doing this over time. I guess let's make this a little interactive. And if you're willing to share, who in this training has security awareness training? Just put it in the chat. Yeah, we're doing something similar to that, and we're doing an annual or whatnot. And Jenna, do we have some responses coming through? Are people doing this? Okay, Suraj is saying yes.
Yep,
Cool.
yep. Looks like we've got about 4 or 5 people saying they do it. A lot of people do it on an annual with quarterly basis, quarterly phishing.
Yep. And it's a simple, I look at it as it's the biggest bang for your buck. In terms of budgets, you may not have new budget to add, but this is the simplest way to upgrade what you're doing from a security perspective that creates that overall culture. Because like we said, you can have all the tools in the world and you can spend thousands of dollars on security, but all it takes is one user to screw up and they've compromised your entire organization. And then the next service that we just like to talk about a little bit, because we're seeing this more and more in the cyber insurance landscape, where cyber insurers are now requiring on their renewals that, do you have a plan for incident response? And what this means is, oftentimes in the marketplace, companies will sell incident response retainers, but they sell them for either 10 to 20 to 30,000 and up, depending on your organization's size. And they come with a bucket of hours that if you do have an incident, you can use up. The problem in the marketplace is that a lot of companies don't have incidents, and so they're essentially paying for this service that they're not getting any value out of. So Arctic Wolf, we've been at the work to create this service. And what it is it establishes an incident response plan from the start of the service. So our incident response team, we actually acquired a company called Tetra Defense about a year and a half ago, and we folded them into the Arctic Wolf mix, and they take about 1,000 incident response cases per year. So if a company has ransomware or business compromise, usually they're working with their cyber insurance provider, and then the cyber insurance provider has tentacles into the companies that provide IR services, and that's how our Arctic Wolf team gets looped in. So we'll come onto the scene, and oftentimes we're doing the what's wrong, the scope of work, and we're giving that company the clean bill of health. If there's any threat actor communications, we're doing that on your behalf. But really, what companies are looking for to begin with is a plan. And you can share this with your executives, your board of directors, your cyber insurance providers, any compliance initiatives that you may have. And what the plan is our incident response team comes in and they'll sit down with you for an hour. And whether PCA is your IT department or you have your own IT department, we can still offer this service in conjunction with PCA. And what the planning process is important, because if there's an incident, you don't have a plan in place, obviously there's lost time, and that's the critical part. So when we plan, we'll understand an organization's environment, really the run book that we're going to be executing if there is an incident, and then understanding the people in place so that we have that plan and it's documented. We'll share it out so that your organization has it. Arctic Wolf has a copy so that if we get contacted, we just look up the plan. We know the plan of action. We also include a 1 hour SLA in this process. A lot of companies will do a 4 hour SLA. Obviously, time is the key factor here. So that's an important part. And then we're helping with understanding what's going on, doing the scope of work, and then we'll tell you exactly how much it's going to cost via our preferred pricing. So we price these hours at $295 per hour. Usually companies will price it about $400. And then sometimes the cyber insurance provider dictates who is doing the IR work. So Arctic Wolf is not necessarily saying, hey, you have to use us for your incident response, clean bill of health work. If we're doing the threat eradication or the threat actor communications, obviously we're embedded within that environment. We're doing the IR work, but this is more on the IR proactive retainer side, to have that plan in place, to have a quick response time, to do the scope of work. And then if you want Arctic Wolf to help you with that incident, we can certainly do that. But if your cyber insurance company is requiring you to use someone else, that's totally fine. So we can sell this as a standalone service within Arctic Wolf, but we can also sell it. It comes included if when you go with an MDR package with 1 year of log retention. So we add that in there as a benefit to our customers. So I'm just curious, how many companies on this call have an incident response retainer? This is something we're seeing more and more, but we're not seeing it as widely as adopted as security awareness training. Suraj, how many are we seeing here? I can't see the chat.
Yeah, if people want to just put it in the chat that if you're using some kind of IR retainer today, or if you're not, yep, I see a couple people.
Yeah, it's just kind of starting to trickle out as the cyber insurance industry obviously is really driving this marketplace. We've been talking with customers that last year they didn't see it on their renewal, but this year they saw it. So it's kind of depends on your cyber insurance company and what they're looking for. So just know that we can help you there, and we can work with you on whatever engagement you're looking at. So I'm going to turn over to Suraj. We have two timelines. Suraj will kind of go over this business email compromise timeline, and I'll briefly go over the other one. But they really illustrate how we deliver our services and the time and speed and value and how the interaction goes.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Andrew. So yeah. So just kind of going through a business email compromise scenario. So this happened in a manufacturing customers of ours, and how we're able to eradicate this threat. So if you look at 12:57 p.m. and the attacker had access to a stolen credential, and they started sending multiple MFA push, right? So they probably say, think about a scenario where you're in a board meeting, you constantly get multiple dual push, you're not an IT tech savvy person, you just want to get that notification gone, you hit accept at 12:57, all of a sudden, now the attacker has access to their mailbox, right? So this was logged using one of the telemetry sources at 12:57, which is Duo. Now at 1:16, once the attacker had access to the user's mailbox, they then start looking at, so in this case, they opened the existing calendar invite for best practices training that was for the entire company, right? So they then also started doing something nefarious where they started deleting 4 rules for that user's mailbox. Now those 2 indicator of attacks were enough for us to begin our investigation internally by that triage team. So if you look at the logs coming in, it was at 12:57 from Duo and 1:16 from Office 365. And then as soon as those 2 were triggered, the triage team began their investigation at 1:18, from which at the same time, they saw that at 1:22, the attacker further uploaded a phishing PDF to OneDrive with an intention to probably distribute to the same email group, which would have gone company-wide. And if they'd clicked on it, probably more stolen credentials, right? So luckily for us, the triage team escalated this particular incident to the customer. And then at 1:25, the triage team confirmed that the account was compromised. They recommended disabling the account and resetting credentials. 1:25, as soon as we got a hold of the customer confirmed they disabled the account and reset the credentials. A lot of the time, incident response stops here. But the nice thing about having concierge security team is that they will then conduct root cause analysis and also do what other things happen. So in this case, they identified that there was also a phishing PDF uploaded to OneDrive. They confirmed nobody else had access to that PDF, and we're able to quarantine that file as well. So now you can see it's not only important. So in this case, if you look at this environment, it's fully cloud. There's no endpoint involved, right? So if you just focus on endpoint and network and forget about cloud, there are more things that are happening from business email compromise to many other things that happens in the cloud from misconfigurations as well. So
yeah, and one thing I'll add here is obviously this is geared towards a customer. So let's say you're on the call and you're thinking, well, I don't have an IT department. How would I get value out of this? We would be able to work with PCA. So if PCA is your IT department, essentially they would replace the customer in this scenario. So we would reach out to PCA and then they would do that remediation on one's behalf. So that's kind of the difference between the slide and how the engagement models would work.
Awesome. So I'm not going to walk us through the entire timeline, but just give you an example of a ransomware type of attack in the government space. So in this case, the sources of telemetry were Active Directory, the network sensor. So in AD, we started seeing multiple logins from a user to different systems. And then the network sensor also detected a outbound communication to a potential known command and control server. And then we suspected having a
Sorry, we'll be back up here in a second. I just got to log back in. Our security is in practice.
Share first.
Yeah. All righty, I think we're back up.
All right, thank you, Andrew.
Yep.
So here I just wanted to show you some of the other sources of telemetry. So as I was saying, Active Directory, you saw multiple logins. There's one of the sources of triggers for us. And then looking at the network sensor detecting malicious IP address, and then potentially suspecting PowerShell and Pyre activity. Now, those two were the two different sources of telemetry that was enough for our triage team to begin their investigation. And then they did validate those C2 traffic was indeed correlated to the PowerShell and Pyre activity, and then to a known command and control server. At 5:30, the investigation was successful. The triage team did investigate and found that the AD activity relating to user logging to multiple system was indeed malicious, and then tied to potentially looking at a ransomware type of activity with the PowerShell and Pyre alerts. And at this time, we did create a ticket with the customer. So one of the things I did mention earlier is, say, if you did have our article agent on in those endpoints or install on those endpoints, we'd be able to quarantine that system or take that offline, as well as if we have the sensor deployed in tap or in line between your firewall and core switch, the triage team would be able to contain that IP as well. But in this case, the endpoint didn't have the agent installed, so we created a ticket with the customer to have them disconnect the system from the network, reset user credentials or service account associated with that system, and then run full AV scan on the endpoint. Now, 6:13, we got hold of the customer. We were able to respond by containing the device and then resetting the credentials at 6:13. So all this happened from detection to respond in less than 30 minutes. But then again, part of your continuous improvement and security journey, the concierge security team also recommended a few things that can help prevent or minimize the impact of these type of attacks. So implementing least privileged access control for remote tools will help prevent escalation or lateral movement across different systems where they don't have access. Also, geofencing their firewalls, enabling multi-factor authentication can be some other countermeasures that can be put in place. Similarly, blocking PowerShell from running on different systems that you don't need. Maybe just for IT system, maybe for a Bastion server, you may want those enabled, but we can have those set up in group policy to limit uses of PowerShell in your environment as well. Now, another thing the CSC team would also recommend is installing the Article of Agent with Sysmon, so we have additional visibility. At the same time, also can perform some of these quarantine activities for you or on your behalf.
Yeah, that's good stuff, Siraj. The one thing I'll point out here is the timing, right? So this obviously happened at 5 in the 5 a.m. timeframe. It could have been 2 a.m. And if PCA is your IT department, or they act as mostly your IT department, I know that PCA offers a 24/7 package. So obviously, you know, if you're doing a service like this, but you don't have that 24/7 package within the PCA framework, you really wouldn't be able to get the value of this fast of a turnaround to stop the spread. So just wanted to comment on that for those that, you know, PCA is acting as your IT department and adding that value. Then I think our final segment here is our Q&A. So we can dedicate 5, 7, 8 minutes here to Q&A before we wrap. So I guess, yeah, any questions that people have out there, just throw them in the chat, and Siraj and I, PCA team, will be able to answer them here.
All right, thank you, Arctic Wolf, PCA team. A lot of great insights shared today. As Andrew said, I do want to open things up to Q&A, see if there's any questions from our audience before we conclude. So if you have a question, please submit it in the chat right now. In terms of next steps, we will follow up with everyone via email by the end of the week with your $50 gift card as a thank you for attending, as well as the recording and additional resources. We have also been keeping a close eye on the chat, and we will follow up with our winners from Cybersecurity Jeopardy. So we appreciate everyone who participated in that. We also encourage you to think of one area of your security posture that you can improve and get in touch with us to schedule a deeper conversation. We can't emphasize enough the value of having real human IT experts that are monitoring your account 24/7 like you get with Arctic Wolf and PCA. So I just dropped some contact information in the chat. Please send us an email if you're interested in exploring this, and we will set that up, and we'll also buy you lunch. And lastly, please be on the lookout for PCA March Madness. I know we're wrapping up February right now, and we just want to get this contest on your radar for next month. So Arctic Wolf will be a sponsor for this event, and there will be a lot of ways to win fun prizes. PCA created this contest to inspire organizations to implement mission-critical IT solutions that are strong enough to protect against modern threats. So be sure to follow us on LinkedIn if you haven't already, and you'll see updates there, and I will drop that in the chat right now. But aside from that, doesn't look like we have any questions just yet. Final call for questions. Any final thoughts from the Arctic Wolf team?
No, yeah, I thank you for attending and spending time out of your day. Yes, security can be really complex. There's thousands of vendors out there, but it's all about getting a service that brings value into your organization. At the end of the day, getting that business solvency, staying safe, and minimizing risk as much as possible is really what we're all about. So it's good to have conversations and appreciate people attending this chat today.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew and team, and thanks everyone again for joining us today. We'll give everyone a few minutes back to your day, and stay tuned for more webinars. Thanks again.
Hey, thanks all.